Om Shanti. When I first heard the topic for this morning, an open mind, then I was reminded of a saying I saw on a notice board somewhere. And it said, our mind is like a parachute. It works best when it's open. And so, why do we need to keep an open mind? Because I remember we often say in day-to-day life, so-and-so is very narrow-minded. In opposite to being open-minded, so-and-so is narrow-minded, very old-fashioned, etc. And so, I remember when I first came to the center, and I used to hear lots of stories from Daddy Janki about Brahma Baba, and from other seniors also, Sudeshman, Gentleman, etc. And I used to wonder, nobody can be this wonderful. They exaggerate. And I really used to think they exaggerated. And I said, I have to find out the truth for myself. Because 30 years down the line, 40 years down the line, they remember everything so clearly, Baba's expression, what Baba said, everything Baba did. It's so clear in their minds. And I think, well, I have experienced that when somebody sort of leaves the body, their memory fades. You know, no matter how close they were to you, the memories fade a little bit. And I thought these people sit on the stage and they talk about Baba because that's what they're supposed to do, because they want to bring us closer to Baba. But I want to find out if this Baba that they talk about was really that wonderful. Let me ask the people who are not going to sit on the stage ever. So I went to do this, not homework, but research for myself. And I would ask people who don't come on the stage, but people who had met Baba, was Baba really this wonderful, or are they just waffling? Are they just making these things up? And he said, sister, they don't even talk enough about how wonderful, how amazing Baba, Brahma Baba really was. I said, is that for real? They said, they don't talk enough. They talk about other things, but they should talk more about Brahma Baba and what he really was. And a couple of days ago, we were having breakfast and a few sisters, and one of them was sharing that Daddy Janki had said that very few souls recognized Baba's stage before he left the body. They realized, they were able to catch and see how high Baba's stage had become. And one of those was Didi. She was actually the only one who understood what Baba really wanted in terms of effort, service, remembrance, in terms of all of these things. Dadi Kumarka understood after Baba left the body, because Didi spent a lot of time with Baba. And I was saying that for myself also, it's only after Dadi Prakashmani left the body, I really understand who she was, what she did, how much she did, and what her stage was. And so I was thinking to myself that I really don't want to make this mistake, because I see it as a mistake that, you know, for 20 years you've been seeing Dadi Kumarka every time you come to Madhuban, but you're not able to, because they behave like us, they walk like us, they talk like us, they do everything like we do, then we don't realize how actually elevated these souls are. And so I said, I don't want to make this mistake with Daddy Janki, that I don't realize, I don't see her stage. And then, because I was in the car with her recently, and I know she just likes to sit quietly in the car, especially on long journeys. She doesn't like to talk or whatever, because that's her chance. Like often people ask, well, why does she fly so much? I said, you have no idea on the plane how quiet and how still Daddy Janki is. Because when she's on the ground level, emails, faxes, people, all these things are there. When you're, 20,000 miles in the air, then emails aren't there, faxes aren't there, telephone, you can't use a telephone, and there's not a queue of people waiting to meet you. And so she's using that time to re-energize. She's using those 8 hours, 6 hours, 2 hours flight to really recharge herself. And one thing very early on I realized is that when people used to ask Dadi Janki, what effort do you make? I used to hate that question. I used to hate it when they asked that question, because I'd feel, well, after 70 years, she's still making effort. You know, it's like 70 years of your life, you're just making effort. And then I said, Daddy, you know, this question, it's really off-putting that you're 70 years in Gyan, 65 years in Gyan, and they're asking you, what effort do you make? After 70 years, will I still be having to say, yes, this is the effort I'm making? And Daddy said, to pacify them or to make them happy, I give them an answer. But actually, it's not where I'm making effort. That level of making effort is over. Time, that it's over. Now I am existing just for the Brahmins, to bring them closer to their own karmatit stage. She goes, if I had to make effort, then when you talk about making effort, then there's ups and downs, there's fluctuation, you have a good day, bad day, etc. She goes, that doesn't exist. And so, yes, they ask me what effort I'm making, and I will give them the answer, what's going on inside me, my stage, etc. But that's to help them. But to say I'm making effort also, I don't need to make effort, Daddy said. Because I'm existing, I could go right now. You know, often Daddy says, I can go now. Because she's existing simply for us. You know, not even for service of souls out there who haven't come yet to Baba, but simply for the BKs, for Baba's children. And then another thing which I used to not like, when people would say, Daddy, oh, this is your speciality, or this is, you know, you're very good at this, or this is what you are. In Gulzar Daddy, this is her speciality, and this is Daddy Kumarka's speciality. And you know, the daddies all have different flavors. One is like strawberry, mango, etc. But they're equally good, if you understand what I'm trying to say. And why I never used to like it when people used to say this is Dadi Janki's speciality, is I'd feel, well, when something is complete, it's not a question of speciality. Perfect, it's complete, it's full. And so where does the question of speciality come into it? Because I remember this time when Dadi came to London, and we were very happy because she'd come after many months. And so we said to Daddy, look, Daddy, you've come home. And she looked at us and she says, wherever I put my feet, that's home for me. And I thought, wow, the whole world is our home. Param Dham is anyway our home. But for Daddy, it's like, wherever I put my feet is home. And home means rest. Home means comfort. Home means you're at home, you've got no worries. And so wherever Daddy is, it's home for her. And so then somebody said to Daddy, oh, you'll have to adjust now, because from India you've come to the West, so you have to adjust. And our answer was, a hero actor never says he has to adjust. And even that was like, wow, you know, it's like, yeah, a hero actor, somebody who's a famous actor, they don't say I have to adjust now to a different role. They still slip into that role very easily. And so these one-liners that Daddy would say, they would really help me in my effort. And I remember once I was going for a walk with Daddy, and I wouldn't say my stage was wonderful at that time. It was okay. It wasn't anything to write home about, like you'd say. And I think Daddy must have known that. She must have known it. But I was convenient, I was nearby, so she just takes anyone's hand and walks off. And we're just walking, and it's like she was talking to herself. I don't remember her specifically turning and talking to me. It's more like she was talking to herself, and she said, if we don't use Gyan, our sanskars will use us. And I was like, oh, you know, that's really bad news. It's like, if I'm not going to use Gyan, then my sanskars will be using me. And then our sanskars will overtake. And this was like, and it's funny because we were turning a corner, and that sentence for me also became like turning a corner in my Brahmin life. And so recently I was just thinking, I wish Daddy's stage was contagious. I'd love to just catch it, catch Daddy's stage. And I watch her, and I try and catch her stage to make my own stage catch and match her stage. And it's like the things she comes out with, you think, where is it coming from? It's like there's no end. It's like we have to look at the time and say stop. But she won't stop, She has so much. It's like a deep well, and there's no end to that well. And often people say to me, I don't understand Dadi Janki. They often say that. I've heard it so many times. We don't know Dadi Janki, we don't understand it, we don't, what's the word to use, is that we don't resonate with her. And I wonder why sometimes. And I know the way to Daddy's heart, Daddy has love for all souls anyway, but the way to Daddy's heart is through study. If I'm studying, and study doesn't just mean reading a Murli, because Baba often says in the Murli, pay attention to study, pay attention to study. Paying attention to study doesn't just mean reading a class or a Murli or whatever, but it's more like studying myself. Study Baba, and I've often studied Maya, because I remember when I first came, then the blessing, I received a paper blessing, and it said to me, you have to understand Maya as much as you understand Baba. That's just a funny blessing, but anyway. And so, understanding myself, studying Baba, and studying Maya also. And in what forms, how does Maya do her work? What is Maya? Because Baba still has a form. He's a point of light. People don't understand that, but we know that Baba has a form, he's that point of light. But Maya doesn't even have that. And so, it's like I was feeling that on the path, on the spiritual path, so many things come. There's obstacles, there's tests, there's storms, there's our sanskars. All of these things are there. And so what discount, I remember asking Jayantiben once, what discount do we get that we have to pass through all of these things? Is there any sort of, are we discounted? Like, Maya comes, Baba says that Maya will come. So does Baba give us a discount in anything? And she said, no, that was it. There was no further clarification. And so, because it's a study, tests will come. And tests are external. Tests come in the form of relationships, in many things. Tests will come. And once you've passed that test, that same test will not come to you again. If you don't pass it, then it comes to you again and again and again. Whether it's a year later or 6 months later, it will continue to come. Maybe it'll be in the form of a different person, but that test will come until you pass. But obstacles and storms are different. A storm comes, it does its damage, and it goes. Like if you think of a storm, it lasts for a few hours, sometimes it's half an hour or a couple of days or something, creates a lot of damage and finished. And storms are in the mind, thoughts. It's like you get a whole avalanche of waste thoughts or something. But obstacles, I remember in Daddy once saying, obstacles are not out there. We often think so-and-so is an obstacle in my progress. They're not out there. Obstacles are internal. And anything that is hindering my progress is an obstacle. So I said, for example, and she said, for example, if you feel sleepy at Amrit Vela, you can't keep awake or something. If that is there, then that is an obstacle in my progress. If I can't do something that I want to do, it's an obstacle. And so when Baba says, become a destroyer of obstacles, because it's a title that Baba gives us, that we are the ones who destroy obstacles, then how is that possible? We're not going to go out and destroy anything externally. destroying obstacles is something, whatever's my weak thoughts, waste thoughts, negative thoughts, all of these things are obstacles in my Brahmin life. And recently, Baba, I think almost every season, Baba touches on the subject of self-respect. And this time, Baba also touched on it a couple of times. And I remember Daddy once saying that 95% of Brahmins don't have self-respect. And I was like, oh, no, that's bad news, that is. And so 95% don't have that self-respect. Either they fluctuate, either they misunderstand self-respect and it's actually ego, or they go the other extreme and think that by being humble, that they're very humble, that humility is just an external show also. Internally there's ego, but externally they show a form of humility. And she goes, I've seen souls like that also. And so I remember in 1990, Daddy had sent me to Africa. Where in Africa? To Nigeria. And when I went to Nigeria, it was like, it was a culture shock because I'd never been anywhere outside of the UK. And when I went there and I saw the locals, and they would come to listen to Gyan, but they were so poor, it's like everything, you just even have a badge, they would be literally begging, can we have a badge? They haven't completed the course, but they're asking for a badge. Okay, so you give them a badge, it's no big deal. But then we'd say, come to class, because they understood Murli, etc. But they said it's too expensive to come to class because they have to come by bus, etc. And I said, well, if it's too expensive to come to class, then their question of going to Madhuban doesn't exist. It's like, they'll never go to Madhuban because the bus fare is too much for them. So the flight fare would be like, they can't even think about going to Madhuban. And I would look at these souls and I would wonder, what is their fortune? Will they ever meet the Brahmin family? Will they ever meet or see the Nadis? You know, and I used to wonder about this a lot when I used to look at them. Yes, you feel mercy for them, everything. They understand Jnanic, everything. They'll do. To be vegetarian was more expensive than what their existing diet was. And they said, it's very expensive for us to be vegetarian. And we say, well, that's one of the pillars of Brahmin life. Okay, even if you can't come to class every day, at least vegetarianism, they said, it's more expensive. And in Africa, in a country like Nigeria, it is because it's a meat-eating country. And so when I came back to London, this question was burning in my mind. That what, Baba says we're all fortunate. Baba tells us so much that you're Shiv Shaktis, etc., etc. And the first thing I asked Daddy when I came back after 6-7 months, I said, Daddy, what is their fortune? They'll never make it to Madhuban. I can't even tell you. Okay, there's a dozen of them, there's 2 dozen. But I can't introduce them to you ever, unless you go there. And then Daddy said to me, what do you understand by fortune? And I was like, I didn't have an answer. Because the way I had understood fortune is, okay, you go to Madhuban every year, it's fortune. You're with the Brahmin family, it's fortune. External things, I'd say, were fortune. To live in Baba's house, it's fortune. You're being sustained by Baba, it's fortune. And then Daddy asked me again, what do you understand by fortune? And I didn't have an answer to give her. And she said, fortune is, I am a soul and I know God. That is it. External, anything that's external, that's like wherever you are, you're there for service reasons or you're there for karmic account reasons, whatever it is, that is not fortune. Like sometimes we see the Madhuban Nivasis and we think they're so fortunate, they're living here all year round and I wish I could be one or whatever. And I said, that's not fortune. That's okay. Baba needs hands in Baba's house, and so Baba will look after his service. He'll place somebody there. But fortune is, I am a soul, and to recognize God. And she goes, did those souls recognize God? And I said, yes. Most of them, handful, recognized Shiv Baba. They would say, Baba. She'd ask me, did Baba emerge from their lips? And I said, yes, Baba emerges from their lips. They understand Gyan because they're fortunate. Don't worry anymore about them. And then, like I was talking earlier about self-respect, and I said, Daddy, well, what's self-respect then? She said, self-respect, the real self-respect is self, I am a soul. Respect is, I belong to God. Until you don't have the feeling of belonging, you cannot have self-respect. And I was so glad she told me these things early in my Brahmin life, because then it wasn't something that I struggled with, that now I have to, where's my self-respect? I have to, I have to use my self-respect. None of that, no. That struggle wasn't there, simply because this clarification, this understanding was there. I am a soul, and I belong to God. And then she said something further on. She said that every soul should be able to say the same thing, whether they are from Africa, London, India, it doesn't matter. Whether they are rich, poor, black, white, it doesn't matter. They can all, every soul, whether they're a child of Baba or not a child of Baba, should be able to say, I am a soul. Not even I am a peaceful soul, but I am a soul, a child of God. And so this helped me a lot. And then self-respect, because we see self-respect, and then the opposite or the other extreme is ego. And the virtue, self-respect is a state, it's not a virtue. It's a state of mind. You have self-respect. It's not a virtue it's not on the list of 36 virtues or whatever. But the result of having self-respect is what? A soul who has self-respect automatically has humility. I said, well, how does that work? She said, look at great souls, even not Baba's children, great souls in the world. Look at Mother Teresa, look at Nelson Mandela, right? They're doing very good work, very charitable work, very great work on a Lokik level. And because they have self-respect, they're able to do that work, plus they have real humility. The result, the manifestation of self-respect is humility. If I have ego and I say self-respect, it won't come across as humility. It comes across as ego. You often say, well, I'm not going if I'm not invited. I've got my self-respect. But actually, that's ego working. And so the proof of self-respect, you could say, is humility. And when I first came on this Brahmin life, it wasn't a choice that I made. You could say it was like I was sort of coerced or put in the situation or the place. I was maybe in the right place at the wrong time or whatever, I don't know. And afterwards I used to think, well, I didn't actually make a choice, that this is what I want. And, because when I was in school, I made a choice for myself that I want to study law, etc., etc. But drama, etc., didn't happen. And so often I used to think, well, I didn't make this choice. It wasn't a choice that I made. And then one day Daddy was giving class, and she said, we don't actually have a choice in life. And I said, yeah, that's true. We don't have a choice in life. She goes, if somebody has, because we often think we have choices. We're brought up or conditioned to think that we have a choice. But we don't. Because if somebody has cancer, it's not a choice that they've made. Or supposing you've organized something like a picnic and it rains, it's not a choice that you've made. Or the government passes a law that, Abu will be closed for 3 days. That's not a choice that I have made. These are external things. She goes, we don't have choices, but what we do have is a chance And I'd say, oh, that's good. Okay, I didn't have a choice in what I've embarked upon, but it's a chance I have. And so making effort, it shouldn't be a struggle, because making effort is what? The effort that we have to make, that Baba says, is remembrance. That's the only place that you have to make effort. And the result of remembrance, if I'm remembering Baba, accurate remembrance, then two things will happen simultaneously. One is that purpose of remembrance is my sins are burnt. Sins of the past are being destroyed, burnt, whatever you want to use. And that's when you have a connection with Shiv Baba. You're able to burn, because you need intensity. Burning means intensity to burn those sins. And if the sins are burnt, proof is automatically I'll feel lighter. Because you imagine your sins are being burnt, they're decreasing then. So the result is lightness. Why does, like you see, Dadi Janki, and I keep referring to it because that's the topic that I've been given, why is Dadi Janki so light even after having so much responsibility? Why was Baba so light? Recently Baba's referred to, Avyak Bapdada's referred to how much responsibility Brahma Baba had, and yet still being light, is because the sins were burnt away in remembrance. And so the natural quality of the soul of being light emerges. So if I'm feeling heavy, then there's something wrong internally. I need to check that, do I have that quality of remembrance that makes me feel light? Another incident I had with Daddy was, I asked Daddy, and when I traveled with her, then I take those opportunities to ask any questions. And I'd say, well, what is burden? We talk about fortune, but what's burden? And she goes, what do you think is burden? Well, I said, well, I've been told that if you throw away food, it's a burden on the soul, or if you waste anything in Baba's house, you're accumulating burden. And so what is burden? She goes, those are external things. So I said, well, what's the real thing then? And she said, burden is accumulated when you have hatred and jealousy. That accumulates burden on the soul. And then that's what makes us heavy. Because on the one side, there are spiritual diseases, and Brahmins have these spiritual diseases of feeling empty, heavy, lonely, bored. It's like you're sitting in a gathering of 400, 500, 1,000, but you feel lonely, or you get tired of listening to, you're listening all day, as you get tired, you think, I can't take it anymore. And so she says, if a soul, Baba's child, cannot listen to Baba's knowledge, it finds it too much, then imagine what quality that soul is. It's not making itself worthy of what Baba really wants. Because I remember in London on Thursdays, every Thursday, there'd be Bhog in the morning, and then afterwards Murli and little 10-15 minutes class or whatever. And then 10:30 there'd be another, we used to call it chit-chat, but it was like a class almost, so that would be for 1 hour. And then after that there'd be a 12:30 ladies class. And okay, for Murli I was there. For the 10:30 one I'd go. And then come 12:30 I'd say, oh, it's too much now, I can't do anymore, it's too much. But there was one sister, and she would do everything, and she was like, she'd look forward to the next one. And I remember saying to her, I don't know how you do it. These were my words to her. I don't know how you do it. I can't do this, what you're doing. By lunchtime, it's like, I'm saturated. And she went and told this to Dadi Janki. That, she was actually praising herself that other people, they find it too much. And she's saying, somebody said to me, I don't know how you do it. And I didn't know she'd gone to Dadi Janki and said that this is what I'd said to her. And one day Dadi saw me, I was like in the kitchen, and she called me into a corner, and I was like, oh God, what have I done now? And then she said to me, did you say these words? I said, yeah, I said these words. Then she said, she didn't tell me off, nothing like that. She said, you should be able to do what they do, plus you should be able to do what you do anyway, the service or the work, whatever it is you're doing. That person can't do what you're doing, but I want you to be able to do what it is that they're doing. And sort of, I nodded, okay, it's like, okay. But then I kept that aim that, okay, I can do what I have to do anyway, my service or whatever, but I should be also able to do what they do. And I was very thankful. Actually, I was very thankful for this sister having, I don't know, I wouldn't call it a complaint, but she had just gone to Daddy and said that this is a comment she'd heard, that, I can't do this much. And I was grateful because it brought about a change in me, that Daddy approached me and said, did you say these words? And I said, yes, I did say these words. They came from my own lips. And so often we think it's too much, like we find it, this expression, it's too much. And Daddy was saying this recently, that either we go from boredom to too much, if we're given a project or any service, saying it's too much for me, I can't manage running the center, this, that, the other. But nothing is actually too much, because if Baba is there for me, then where does the question of too much come in? And again, Daddy was saying, ask me what's inside me, what's at my root. And I was sharing this yesterday with a few people, that Baba is there for me. Never let go of this understanding that Baba is there for me. And she shared a story that Didi asked Brahma Baba, Didi Manmohini, asked Brahma Baba that how come Mama became number one and not me? And I thought, what a question to ask Baba, that how can you ask Baba this, that how come Mama became number one and not me? And Baba said, okay, I'll tell you later. Baba didn't immediately give her a reply. And Sakar, Baba, Mama, Didi, they were meeting a group of people. Baba was meeting a group of Brahmins, individuals, and Baba was sharing with them, etc., Gyan or whatever. And then afterwards, when they'd left, etc., a few hours after, Baba asked Didi, what did Baba share with that group? And Didi says, well, Baba, you were sharing with them, so I wasn't paying attention. It wasn't for me, you were talking to them. So I was just sitting at the side. And so then in front of Didi, Baba asked Mama, Mama, what did Baba share with that group? And Mama repeated everything that Baba had shared. And then Baba turned to Didi and said, I was talking to that group, it wasn't anything to do with Mama, but Mama was listening to what Baba was saying. She didn't feel that it's not for her. Often you think, well, they're meeting a group, it's nothing to do with me, it's not for me. She's meeting UK, it's not for Russia people or whatever. And so it's Gyan. It doesn't mean that it's only for a specific group. Gyan is not exclusive to a group. And so then Didi was there, and then Baba said to her, do you understand now why Mama has become number one and not yourself? Because both in the same situation, Baba's asking both the same question, both of them the same question, and yet a different response. Didi saying, well, I wasn't listening, it wasn't for me, and Mama repeating everything. And so Mama was able to grasp, and catching power, that's what catching power means to me, is that you're able to grasp, understand what it is that's being said, not just grasp it, but absorb it. This is what I was saying yesterday. What does dharana mean? Dharana means you absorb it into your life. And then once, this story I heard later on, but I asked Daddy, and I think I asked her in Gyan Sarovar only, that, I really don't think Mama should have become Lakshmi. I think you should become Lakshmi. And she goes, why? Well, I said, you've done so much more than Mama. Physically, mentally, spiritually, service-wise, everything. You've done so much more. Mama, she left the body in 65. And here you are you're in 2005 and you're still going on and you're running from country to country. Your whole day, you're just, sustaining souls. You're doing so much more. You've done like so many years. Mama only did a little bit. How does she become Mama? Even Daddy Kumarka has done so much. She brought the yagya from so small to so big. So what makes Mama? How come Mama becomes number one? And Daddy didn't like this question. She goes, shh, don't say things like this. I said, but it's not fair. You're doing much more. It's not right. And then she said, Mama's inculcation power was much more than ours. And I was like, oh God, if Mama's power was more than theirs, then God only knows what Mama must have. It's like just beyond imagination that how much inculcation power Mama must have had. And I said, are you sure that Mama was really, like that she becomes Lakshmi? And she goes, Daddy said, yes. Even we felt that Mama, what she did, we don't do. And I really thought to myself, this is too much. It's like, how do you absorb all this, that Mama was more than what the daddies are today? And then sometimes when we have business meetings, etc., this picture of Mama and Baba in front, and sometimes it's like in a meeting, sometimes you're going around in circles, there's no solution, or you're just, it's not working or something. And often I just look at Mama's face, and I said, Mama, you were the administrator of the whole yagya. Baba was there anyway, but you carried out the duties, you did the work. And I really feel, I get that feeling from Mama, just a picture even. It's like when you look at pictures of Daddy Kumarka, you can feel their stage. And this is just a picture, and you think, what was the reality? From Baba, you can feel so much might, so much love. And you think, what must have been, the reality must have been just so much more. And I remember asking Gulzadari once that there are different types of drishti in my mind. There's drishti from when you look at a translite or a picture. There's drishti from when you're looking with the daddies, or any daddy, whoever. And there's drishti when someone's conducting meditation and you take drishti from them. And then there's the drishti when Avyakt Bapdada comes. So I said to Daddy Gulzar, do you know how much chaos there is just to receive Baba's Avyakt Bapdada's drishti? You have to get a ribbon, and people fight for a ribbon, and it becomes ugly sometimes, and people are so desperate for Baba's drishti, Avyakt Bapdada's drishti. And I said, is this right? It doesn't feel good, the way sometimes people behave, or they lose their stage or whatever, just to go onto the stage, just to get 1 second of drishti. And I said, well, when you daddies give drishti also, it's like, we want that, but we don't fight for it, but we like it. And then there's drishti of all of us lot, whenever we're conducting meditation, and then there's a translite. So is it different levels? What is it, this drishti thing? And so I said, how does drishti work anyway? First of all, tell me, how does drishti work? Why are we so desperate for drishti? And then she said, drishti works like a laser beam. And it's nothing to do with physical. It's like sometimes you'll see, the daddies will be giving drishti to you while you're walking, but they might be mentally somewhere else. And it's like they have to give sakash to other souls who need it also. And so drishti works like a laser beam. How a laser beam can just zap, or just get to the root of something. That's how drishti works. And then Daddy Janki said that when souls come in front of me and they need help, they need a boost, then that's how drishti works. It gives that boost that they need. Because sometimes words don't work. They're listening to words, but the soul doesn't have the capacity now to, words can't handle it. And so sometimes that silence and that drishti does the work, that if somebody says anything to them, they don't accept it. They reject, even if it's a daddy, They reject words. But drishti, it's like it works. When we give drishti, then it works on them. And she says, it's like when a surgeon has to do an operation. So sometimes giving drishti is like a surgeon doing an operation on the soul. Like that is the master surgeon or Baba. And yesterday she was sharing that about the sister who lives by herself in Iran. And where does she get her sustenance from? Where does she get her drishti from? She sits in front of Baba and then takes that drishti. And it's only when there's two, myself and Baba. Two, if a third person comes in between, then my third eye closes. And that was very beautiful, that me and Baba, but if there's a third person in between, your third eye closes. It doesn't work. Our third eye, the soul. And so Baba, through any means, Baba has his own means. You know, it's like in the Bible it's written that God's ways and means are unique. You know, so Baba will help a soul if there is no ego. If there's that realization, because it's often ego that doesn't allow realization to take place. But if there's a realization, then Baba will help the soul. And that he was saying in a few weeks back, that Baba will not help a Maharati as much as he'll help a new child. He'll help new children more. He won't help the Maharati. If a Maharati makes a mistake, Baba's not obliged to help, because a Maharati should know better, basically. And so Baba's drishti works wonders, and that's our sustenance. And often souls say to me, well, we don't get any sustenance, we're out in the world, we're by ourselves, there's no center for miles, and the nearest center is like 6 hours away by car or by flight, etc. And so how do we sustain ourselves? How can I sustain myself when I'm in such a situation? And so what is sustenance? And like I was saying earlier, that the way to Daddy Janki's heart is if there's real love for study. Not just externally, but real deep love for Baba's study. And so if I have that love for study, Baba's there for me. I can receive drishti from Baba. It's not a physical thing, but with the third eye, I can take drishti from Baba. And most of us receive murlis. Plus, if you think about it, most of us receive Daddy's classes. I mean, is there anybody here who doesn't receive Daddy's classes? And Daddy Janki is giving the class in Hindi, whether it's in Om Shanti Bhavan here or in Shantivan. And in the West, it comes by email. The class is typed up immediately and sent out. Imagine Daddy speaking Hindi, it's translated and quickly sent out, mostly on the same day. There can be 10,000 sitting in front of her. They don't get Daddy's class in Hindi. It doesn't get typed unless Daddy specifically calls for the brother who types in Hindi and says, send out this class. And so I used to feel sorry that the people in Bharat don't get Daddy's class. And yet Daddy is speaking in Hindi, she's sitting in their country, and they don't get it. They don't receive Daddy's class unless she specifically says, okay, send out this class. And yet here we are in the West, we feel that we're far away, but actually we're very close. Because physical closeness isn't that necessary. Closeness of minds. Like Daddy Janki was saying recently, is that she never spent that much time with Daddy Kumarka. She'd come for 2 months of the year previously, right? February and March, she'd come for when the full season was there. Baba never used to come that much in October. And so she would come a little bit, sometimes Christmas, mostly it was just February and March. And she was like, Daddy who's come from foreign lands. So she never spent, because Baba sent her, when Sakar Baba was there, they were in different places. Daddy Kumarka might have been in Bombay, then Daddy Janki would have been in Delhi. Daddy Kumarka would have been in Pune and Daddy Janki would have been in Punjab. So they were always in different places. They were never together as such. And then after 74, Daddy Janki was anyway in the West. So she never spent a lot of time with Daddy Kumarka. But their stages, she said, our stage, we picked up on each other's, means our stages were on the same level. And so effort or to feel close to Baba or that I'm receiving sustenance, because to say these words, I'm not getting any sustenance, it's like you're almost cursing yourself, I would say. It's a harsh word. It's like you're saying to yourself, well, I don't get anything. I'm a victim consciousness almost, like, we don't get any sustenance, we don't get any, but Daddy's classes are there, a Murli is there, read it. That is Baba's sustenance. Sit in front of Baba, that's sustenance. Don't feel that I don't get anything, And when you do all this subtle effort, then drama will bring you to, you'll feel close to Baba some way or another. And then often, it's like Baba remembers Uncle Steve in the Avyak Murli, and Uncle Steve is Gayatri's father. And often Baba will say in the Murli that Baba is sending Sakash to that soul. And okay, he's had heart surgery, etc., etc. So what is this Sakash that Baba sends? All of you have heard this word, Sakash. And how many of you really understand what Sakash really is? How would you describe Sakash? Hello? Describe Sakash. All of you have heard the word. So how would you define it? Feelings from your heart. Okay, yeah. Huh? Okay, current, yeah. Okay, actually, to tell the truth, I can't hear that well. So, Sakash is a Hindi word, and it's like the word, when we come to Baba, it's like our dictionary changes. There's a word avyakt. Avyakt you won't find in the dictionary, but the word you will find is vyakt. So there's avyakt and vyakt. Vyakt means corporeal, gross, personal. So Baba's avyakt means he's not gross, he's not corporeal, he's subtle. And Sakash, I'm going to give you 3 different definitions of Sakash, and from that you understand what Baba means when he says that he gives Sakash. One is, it's like supposing you're cold, you're feeling very cold, and then a fire is lit, or you see a fire or somewhere, and you go near the fire. It's like a fireplace is there. You go near the fire, and you put your hands like this. It's like you're feeling cold, and you put your hands like this. So that's the fire. This is your hands. The feeling that's there, that is Sakash. I don't know how you would describe this, but it's like you feel warmed up. You feel cozy almost. And cozy is not the right word, but you're feeling that warmth. Warmth is maybe a better word. That warmth from the fire. And so that is Sakash. That's one definition. A second definition is that, like when a chicken lays its little eggs and it's got these little chicks, and then it keeps its chicks under its wing, right? It tucks them under its wing. And so that is Sakash. It's like Baba tucks us in, it's like he keeps us warm, he keeps us by close to himself. And a third definition is that sometimes when it's like, for example, this morning somebody said to me, oh, it's nice to be in the same compound as Daddy Janki. Because they would come to stay in Bandarbon for one night, and Daddy also stayed there. They had no work with Daddy Janki. They didn't need to meet her for any purpose. They didn't need to do anything, and Daddy didn't give class in the morning or anything. But she said, it's nice to be in the same compound as Daddy Janki. And so this is another type of Sakash. It's like somebody's there. They're there for you. You don't need them all the time. It's like they're just there. And so if it's like somebody elder, somebody responsible, somebody mature, it's just there for us. And so this is a different feeling. This word current, light, all of these things are there, that's Sakash as well. But that warmth that you feel when you feel rested, you feel, they're there. If you need them, they're there. But you don't need them 24 hours a day. Just that they're there. It's nice, comforting that they're there. And so that's what Sakash is. And one thing that helps me in I always ask myself, well, I remember Gentleman said many years ago, and she never repeated it because she was told not to repeat it because people wouldn't be able to handle it. And I said, no, that's not true. If you tell the truth, it's as it is, then people will be able to handle it. And she said that when you surrender to Baba, the first 8 hours of service that you do does not go into your account of accumulation. And I said, where does it go then? And she goes, that is for it's like when somebody does Lokik job, they do 8 hours work, they earn money from that, and so their shelter, their food, their daily living is from the money they earn from their 8 hours of work. Yeah? That's how they sustain themselves physically. Anything you do, this is for those who are living in the center surrendered, anything you do on above 8 hours, that goes into your account of accumulation. It's like I'm living in the center, so I'm provided by the center. You have a bed, you have food, you receive clothes, etc. And so the first 8 hours does not count. And it's a lot to digest, that was, it's a heavy pill to digest, but it doesn't count. Anything you do above 8 hours then goes into your account of accumulation. And so when I belong to Baba, it's like we talk about that if you do good, then you receive 100 times return for every one bit of good you do. But it works the other way as well, that if you do something wrong, then you lose out 100 times. And so I said to Daddy once that, Daddy, sometimes, because often I've been called a bhagat type of soul, and I said, sometimes, Daddy, I remember you more than I remember Baba, to tell you the truth. And I said, is that wrong? And if I remember you, will my sins be burnt? So there were these two questions that I'd put to her. And she was having her lunch. She goes, wait a minute. And so she had her lunch. And then she said, remembering me means my remembering Daddy Janki won't burn any sins. But what will happen is that you'll have the power to do more charity. You won't burn sins, but there'll be the power to do good actions, to do charity. So that will help you then to remember Baba more. And she said, sometimes souls are not able to reach Baba directly, right? And so they'll take the support of somebody. It's like if somebody's close to somebody, it's like if you're close to the Prime Minister, then another person will try and come close to you so they can get close to the Prime Minister. Does that make sense? Yeah? And so, and so I don't have access. I don't know how to reach the Prime Minister, but I know somebody who knows the Prime Minister very well. And so you then go to the person who knows the Prime Minister very well, and you ask them, well, I want to reach the Prime Minister, will you help me? And so Daddy said it like that, okay, I know God very well, I've studied God, I've been with God, And so I know God very well. So I'll introduce you, I'll tell you all about God. I'll give you access. I'll show you how to reach God. And so it's like, she's like a friend in helping us to reach our destination. And I remember once when I was going through a very difficult time, is that I didn't understand what was going on. Totally, I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't know who to turn to, what to say, because if you say something, it's like, but you've got so much gyan, can't you? This is not a big situation, but I was going through something. And so then I didn't know what to do. And so then I said, well, I want a message from Baba because I can't handle this situation. I don't know what to do, which way to turn. And so then I spoke to Daddy on the phone, and I said, Daddy, I don't understand anything. Gyan and yoga doesn't work. Nothing is helping me. And I said, there's this person, this other person, and they're suffering. And they've done so much. What have they not done in their Brahmin life? Whether it's through mind, through body, through wealth, they've done everything. So why are they going through this? It's not fair. And Daddy said, they've done everything. I agree with you. I've seen that with my own eyes. But the only effort that they haven't made is to think that I am a pure and peaceful soul. Have they made that effort? And I said, no, they haven't made that effort. She goes, this is why they're suffering. And it was like, oh my God, it's like, it really put everything in place for me. That yes, they've done everything. They've, it's like renunciation's there, and service is there, bending over backwards is there, going the extra mile is there, everything is there. But the effort of I am a pure and peaceful soul isn't there. And that was really, it just clicked everything for me that, no, they haven't made this effort, that he was right. And she goes, this is now why they're going through what they're going through. And she said, this is why I'm warning you. Make this effort, that I don't run around and think that's the be-all and end-all, that it's unnecessary. The effort to be that pure and peaceful soul is very necessary. And so this also helped me a great deal to help understand the situation when Gyan and Yoga wasn't helping, but just this aspect that I am a pure and peaceful soul. I think I'll wind up there. I mean, I'd probably go on forever, but does anybody have any questions? Anybody want to ask anything? Okay. So we'll have a few minutes meditation, and then we'll finish.